Hey guys, it's John with CheatSheetPros.com, and today we're going to take a look at some early Week 2 NFL bets that I like using the NFL cheat sheet. So let's go ahead and get started. So I start off going to the Vegas tab down here, and this is going to give you just a quick overview of lines that have moved. We can see there's quite a bit of movement in the totals coming into Week 2. Most of the sides, half point, pretty standard. Here, Denver took a big jump. They jumped out -3 to -6, going to Jacksonville. New England 3.5 to -6. Tampa 10.5 to 12.5. Seattle 3.5 to 5.5. And then Kansas City 2.5 to 3.5. Everything else was half point. Had a couple of them that were just a point here and there. As far as the totals, you can look here. We've got oh my word, stuff's jumping all over the place. So the Giants game dropped 43.5 down to 40.5, so it moved down 3 points. The Carolina game moved down 2.5 points. Houston, Cleveland jumped up 2.5, and that's 1. Pittsburgh went down 2, which I could see their defense looked ridiculous last week against Buffalo. Buffaloans slid down a line, half a point there. Here's a huge jump. And this is one of our plays we're going to go over is San Fran and Philadelphia, 46.5 up to 50. And that climbed quick. And then Denver, Jacksonville, 43 to 45.5. Don't really care either way for that one. New England dropped 2. Tennessee, Seattle went 51 to 54. And then Dallas and the Clippers, the Chargers, they went 50 to 55. So that thing jumped 5 points. That's the one that kind of jumped out at me, but I think it might be up in the what I call the nosebleed section. It's up in the highest of highs at this point. Kansas City 53.5 to 55. They're always a viable overplay with the way our defense played last week. So let's go down and run through the games. I've got 5 games that I like. I'll go ahead and give them to you real quick. I like the Saints. I like the Buffalo Bills, the Rams, the San Fran Philadelphia over. And then those are the 4 that I love. And then the 5th game, if you held a gun to my head and made me pick, I would go with the Dallas Chargers over. So let's run through them. I'll tell you why I like them and then kind of give you my opinion on the other plays. So something new for 2021 is we have this called the Bobby Index. So without getting into a bunch of detail, this is an index rating system on how a team performs, and I've just converted it over into a Vegas line, so it gives us something to compare. This will be updated every week. It's something fun to follow, so take a look at it. A lot of people follow the index ratings, and I just kind of converted them into a Vegas line. And so I did it last week, and it was a lot of fun picking the plays. I think they end up, I don't have my sheet, what they end up doing. I know Minnesota was one. They should have won. They end up losing in overtime. Dalvin fumbled and whatnot, and there was another game that was close. But there's something to kind of compare the Vegas line to and just keep track and see, if this is pointing us in a good direction or not. And then the other one we have is the cheat line and the cheat score. So, So this is kind of our custom line right here. I wouldn't really use it till week 3, week 4, so everything is heavily skewed. So it's real similar to the line that we did with the average yardage and breakdown previously. I just added a couple little twists to it to give us a line and give us the projected score and a projected total. With the games like Tennessee, who did so horrible, and the Packers, it spit out some crazy lines for week 2. So I put a little factor in it to skew it. So it's still skewed a little bit. It's going to show you a line, but again, it's 1 week of data, so I'll open it up as we go on, put it that way. So the Bobby Index, we're good to kind of work off of that when we're picking our games and pointing us in a direction. The cheat line, you got to kind of know how it's put together and just take it with a grain of salt at this point. So our first game, our Thursday night game, is going to be the New York Giants at Washington. Washington, we know, has that beast defense. Line 3.5. I don't really like a side either way. The index has Washington -2.5. We know Fitz is out. Cheat line has the Giants favored by 1.5. I don't think either team did really well in the first week. I would probably lean Washington, but do you really feel confident giving up 3.5 points with Heineke at QB? you'd be banking on their defense, but don't really have a lean in this one. There's nothing that jumps out as far as stats. If you're playing DFS, I do like Antonio Gibson. You can see the Giants here gave up 5.9 yards per carry in week 1, which was 31st. And then this Washington defense, you know, it stayed strong, giving up 3.1 yards per carry. But again, they didn't do very much rushing, but I think they're going to be forced to now with the new QB situation. So nothing I really love in that game. If anything, I would probably do a 2-team 6.5-point teaser and add some points to the Giants and then tease the under down from, it's 40.5, so I'd give you under 47. And then it'd give you 6.5, 9, 10, like Giants plus 10. I think that's probably your safest bet if you want some action. And then going into Sunday's game, the first game that we like are the Saints. Opened up at Pick'em, which is 0, moved out to -3, so we have a quick 3 points out on the Saints. Obviously, they crushed the Green Bay Packers last week, so Vegas has this as a 24-21 game. Total slid down a couple points. Our Bobby index here, this one really jumped out at me, is -8. So it's saying the Saints should be favored by 8. So laying 3, I'm really happy to do that. I'll probably lay 3.5 or 4 and roll the dice and kind of see what they can do in week 2. I'm not a fan of Sam Darnold. They didn't play that good against the Jets last week. I wasn't impressed. They did end up pulling out, but the Jets looked just god-awful. Over here on the cheat line, you can see they have Carolina -1. The reason they have this at -1 is basically these yardages over here, which Carolina put up a bunch of yards against a very bad New York Jets team, so it's skewed. So by all means, the 322 yards that the Saints put up was a lot better than the 381 Carolina put up, and they were a lot more efficient, which you can see this yard per point. Typically, league average is 14.8. A good team is going to sit around 12.5 to 13.2. And you can see the Saints were 8.5. That's ridiculous. There's no way they will stay at that number. But again, these 322, that's like 500 normal yards. And then the yard per point, league average is 14.8, but Carolina was 20.1. So this 381 means nothing to me. So I'm just going to X this out, and I'm going Saints here. Public on the 3 points, I'm good with that. Lay the 3. Only 1 week of data, but you've got the #1 passing offense, the #1 total D, #1 rush D, and #1 passing D. Again, it was an off game for Green Bay. Take it with a grain of salt, but again, I'm not a fan of Carolina, so Saints is the first play that I'm going with. Come down here to Houston, Cleveland. This is not one of my plays, but I want to take a look at it. So our Bobby index has basically, you could say pick'em. -0.5 is still, it's pick'em. Cheat line, 0, so that's pick'em. It's basically putting them side by side. They were both fairly decent as far as offensive efficiency. I live in Kansas City, so I watched Cleveland a lot. I watched Cleveland a lot this weekend against the Chiefs, and they looked really good. I was actually sweating that game for a little bit. And both of these teams, look how many yards they put up last week. 449 and 457. The league average for the entire season last year was 358. So they had the second and fourth most yards last week. So this is a game, obviously the total 45.5 jumped to 48. People are going to get behind that. So we basically have pick'em, and we have a total of about 56.5. So yeah, I could probably get with the over here. I'm sure as hell not going to lay 12.5 or 13 with Cleveland after what Houston did last week. I mean, they actually look like a decent football team, and they killed a lot of survivors. So you come down here, take a look at it. Some things that jump out at me is this Cleveland O-line. So they've got one of the best offensive lines, and Houston has one of the worst defensive lines. So this is a huge bump to Cleveland. So this is our trenches. This is basically what we use to find running backs for DFS. But you can see their defensive line. So we look at the straight up line, 5 to 10 yard runs and 10 plus yard runs. And then the power runs are like 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, stuff like that. And Cleveland's Houston is 30th, 29th, 10th, and 18th. They probably didn't have enough to rate this, but 30th and 29th, I mean, Chubb's going to have a field day here. So I look at this and say, okay, we've got the #1 rushing offense that's favored almost 2 touchdowns against the 27th rushing defense. So I want to dig into that because it's only one game. Well, they were giving up 4.8 yards per carry. So you're looking at this. Cleveland right now has the #1 offensive line, and the other team's giving up almost 5 yards a carry, and they're favored 2 touchdowns. I mean, Cleveland's going to win this game. They're going to get a lead. They're going to pound Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt right up the middle, run down the clock. I wouldn't lay the 12.5. If you were going to bet this and you did want some action, I would probably take the over and take the points, because if Cleveland gets their way and they run the clock down and they keep it close, or they squeak in somewhere around that 10, 13, 14 point mark, it's going to be real close to the spread. But if Houston's able to move the ball on Cleveland and score, then it's going to go over and you're going to have the points. So I feel that's a little bit safer. You could even parlay those two. If you want to do a teaser on it, I mean, you could get this up to 18.5 and over, what would that be, 42? So that wouldn't be bad for a straight bet. Just tease those two. But again, it's not one of my 5 plays that I have. Cincinnati, Chicago, we're going to take a look at this one real quick. I don't like either side of this. I'm more of a sit and wait. We've got Pick'em, Cincinnati -1. Wasn't really impressed with either team last week. Cincinnati did really good against Minnesota, but again, it's one game, so I'm going to shy away from this one and see what happens. Pittsburgh, I like Pittsburgh -5.5. I'm likely not going to bet it, but I may tease it, because Pittsburgh at home with that defense, I think they can annihilate the Raiders. I didn't see the second half of the game, so I don't really know exactly what happened, but they're laying 5.5. The Bobby Index has it much closer at Pittsburgh -2, and then our cheat sheet line, due to all the yards that the Vegas put up, has a -8. So when we go over here and we look at this, Vegas put up almost 500 yards, which is insane. And then Pittsburgh only had 252, but they played a decently tough team. Yard per point wise, they weren't very good. They were a little less than league average, but Pittsburgh was pretty efficient at 11. So I lean Pittsburgh here, but all the numbers, our Bobby Index and our cheat line, are pointing the other way. So I'm probably going to shy away or put it on a 6-point teaser where I can get it down to pick. So go here, Miami, Buffalo. Buffalo is my second game that I like. So Vegas has them opened at 3, went to 3.5. It moved to 0.5 point. Bobby Index has Buffalo -1. Our cheat sheet win, and I like this line, we have it Buffalo -6.5. So we look at the yardages last week, and hear me out on this one. So Buffalo put up 371 yards. Miami only put up 259. Now, Buffalo only allowed 252 to a decently tough Pittsburgh team with Najee Harris. I know their line's not that good, but they've got a lot of weapons, so I was pretty impressed by that. But Miami gave up 393 yards. That was just astronomical. So I think Buffalo gets back on track. I think this should be more of a 6.5 line, so Buffalo's the second play that I like. Also, looking at this, Miami didn't get a lot of QB pressure, which I know New England ran a lot last week, so kind of take that with a grain of salt. But Buffalo was #1 in D-line last week, and then #6 in stopping runs of 5 to 10 yards. So that bodes well for them. And again, everybody knows Buffalo from last year. Josh Allen was slinging it all over the place to Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley. Now they got Emmanuel Sanders. They're going to be fine. I think they come back in this game. And you can see Miami here after 1 week, they ranked 28th against the wide receiver ones. So I think Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, they have a heyday. I mean, laying 3.5 all day. Another thing that jumps out, Miami. So Miami's kind of fairly split with their run, their pass. It's 45-55 roughly. And Buffalo still only gave up 3.6 yards per carry, which was really good, and only a 33.3% allowed red zone TD percentage, which is good. So I think Buffalo's the much better team here, and you're getting a discount. So to me, line should be 6.5. At 3, 3.5, 4, I'm all over that one. So that's the second play I like. Buffalo, Rams. Rams are the third play that I like. So this opened at 3, went to 3.5. I'm basically more of a fan of their defense. I love Indy. I'll have a ton of Jonathan Taylor. I'm real big on him this year, but hear me out. So Bobby Index has this should be Rams -7. Our cheat sheet line has it should be Rams -5.5. So both of those are covering this field goal, so I don't mind that. When we come over here, they both did decent in yardages. The Rams had a little bit more at 386 compared to 336 the first one. But look how efficient the Rams were. So the Rams had 11.4 yards per point, which is well better than the league average of 14.8, and Indy was at 21. And what worries me, if you read the article that I posted, it's the lack of wide receivers for Indy. So if we come down here, this is more fantasy related. You see Jonathan Taylor and Hines, I think they were the top 2 targets. One of them had 8 targets, one of them had 7 targets, and then Pascal caught 2 touchdowns, and everybody else, I mean, really, you've got Pittman, Paris Campbell, Pascal, Mo Alley, Cox, and then a couple running backs, and Carson Wentz hasn't been that impressive. But then you come over here to the Rams, who have a stellar defense, and then Stafford, Henderson's kind of so-so, but, you know, he's manageable. But then you got Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, and then you've got some deep threat options. I don't think it's a contest here. Both teams allowed over 5 yards per rush attempt, but over here, the overall rank for rush D, pass D, or I'm sorry, rushing offense and passing offense is 2nd and 4th versus 23rd and 18th. And then the rush D wasn't that good. Passing D was real good. So I think the Rams get this. So seeing this at only 3.5, I really like that. If it was 5.5, I'd probably kind of stay away because you're getting close to a touchdown. But a field goal and a hook, I'll take that all day. So going down, Philadelphia, San Francisco, over is my 4th play that I really like. This is one we saw on the Vegas sheet. It jumped from 46.5 up to 50, so it moved 3.5 points. The sides, Bobby Index has it at a close game. That's good because that means we're more apt to get a shootout going back and forth as opposed to minus 12.5, where Cleveland, you know, they could get the lead and be like, we got this, let's run the clock. Cheat sheet line on this is going to lead towards Philadelphia, and that's basically due to the less amount of yards allowed. So last week, they both put up 442 and 434 yards, which ranks 5th and 6th. But then defensively, San Francisco gave up 430, but then Philadelphia only gave up 260. So that's why this cheat line is leaning over here to Philadelphia, who had the much better defensive performance. Come down here, they both gave up a ton per carry. They both scored 100% of their red zone touchdowns. That's another thing that's driving the over. I think this would be a good game. I'm really excited for it. San Francisco has an advantage running the ball. They rank 4th, 2nd, and 4th against 26th, 32nd, and 15th. And then you flip it around, and both of these QBs have the advantage here. Or I'm sorry, San Francisco does not. So Philadelphia's 4th in QB pressure, and San Francisco's 26th in protecting the quarterback, and then vice versa over here. I don't think there's anything else that really jumps out on this game. So basically, all the offensive yards, San Francisco gave up a ton. I lean Philly plus the points here. I would love teasing this and taking Philly up to from +3 to +9.5, and then teasing this over down that's already jumped to 50 and getting it down in the low 40s. That'd be a fun straight wager. Or just go ahead and take in the over because 50 is not terrible. Usually if it's going to get in this range, you're going to get an over. These other games I'm going to flip through pretty quick because I don't have a dead set lean on. So Denver opened at 3, moved to 6. Total moved up 2.5 points. Bobby Index, we have Denver -6.5. So you can see this opened at 3, moved to 6. So it's chasing the index line, which is good. That means we might be onto something that's a little predictive. Cheat sheet line -6, so we're at -6, so I don't have any interest in it at this point. I'm going to stay away. I don't feel good about laying a bunch of points with Denver because they're just not that good offensively, but they have a stellar defense. New England Jets don't want any part of this game. New England opened at 3.5, moved to 6. We have it at 4.5, so it started below our index line and moved over it. And our cheat sheet line, we have a 6.5, so it's too close to call. The Jets looked absolutely horrible. The key here is Zach Wilson looked really good when he had time in the pocket and he was able to find his target. He made good passes, good throws, but if there was any pressure, he was toast. And looking at their O-line here, which this is basically for running, but like 30th, 26th, 26th, they're not very good. So you come over here at QB pass protection, and they're 30th at protecting him, And then New England is 10th at applying pressure. So this is a big red flag to me. I would lean New England here, but 6 is a lot to lay. And you can see 4.5 is kind of the number I would feel comfortable. So if it was -4 or 4.5, I may put a unit on New England. But anything over that, I'm probably just going to stay away because there's no way I'm taking the Jets there. Arizona, Minnesota, this is one of the games I'm really excited for. Line's 3.5. So we got at Arizona -6, cheat sheet line -7. Basically, both teams put up over 400 yards last week. And while Minnesota gave up 366 and lost that game, it was basically some deep passes where Jamar Chase got away. So I kind of take that with a grain of salt. And then Arizona, they only gave up 248 yards, which was the second lowest in the NFL. So this is a game I'm not really going to take a side yet. I'm looking at it a little bit more. But I'm really curious to see what happens here. Because you can see second and first, both teams are going to apply pressure to the opponent QB. Both teams are decent against the run. Arizona's defense, I mean, it just looked phenomenal. But you can't count out, you know, Kirk Cousins with Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, and Thielen. So I think this is going to be a really good game. So no lean on that one, but really interested to see how it plays out. Tampa, Atlanta. If you're doing a survivor, Tampa's the slam dunk. This is the chalk that I would eat all day. Typically, I won't take the chalk 1 or chalk 2 team. We have an index line of Tampa Bay minus a touchdown. We have 6.5. So say 7.5 is where I would feel good with the line, but 10.5 is just way too high. You get to 12.5. Yeah, they may cover that, but in an NFL, getting almost 2 touchdowns, that's a tough cookie to lay. As far as the total, 52, we got it projected somewhere around 48 with not a lot of data. You know, this game could go either way. Atlanta only had 260 yards of offense, so I worry about them being able to score against Tampa's defense, which is stellar. Tampa had 431 yards of offense, and it could have been over 500. They had some third down plays that just didn't pop. Both teams gave up a ton. I mean, Tampa gave up 451 yards. That was ranked 30th to Dallas. So it's possible. We've seen Matt Ryan. I mean, he's got Ridley and Gage and Kyle Pitts. I mean, he could start airing it out. He could get up there and stay inside that 12.5. I think that's definitely plausible. I wouldn't want to wager on it, but it's something where I'm not going to lay 12.5. If you're doing a 10-point teaser, yes, put Tampa on there. You get them down to -2.5. That's a slam dunk. But again, we're not looking at a 10-point teaser for this. All the stats are going to rank exactly where they did. Tampa did well. Atlanta did poorly. That's what you're going to see. Atlanta gave up 5.6 yards per carry, which was awful. Tampa only 3.3. They shut Zeke down, but they gave up some stuff through the air. So Tampa's going to have their way with this game. It's just a matter of what they want to do. Got 4 games left. I'm going to try to flip through here real quick. We're already at 23 minutes. Tennessee, Seattle. Again, this is a game that I'm going to stay away from. It opened at 3.5. It's out to 5.5. We got Seattle -7. Cheat sheet line has -9. That is basically skewed because Tennessee had no yards. You know, 248 total yards of offense, and then they gave up 416. So that's going to twist this over and put a big play over here on Cincinnati and say, hey, they should be favored 9. Now, Seattle could come out and cover 7, cover 9. I wouldn't be shocked, but I kind of want to see what Tennessee does. I mean, they've got Julio Jones. They have A.J. Brown. Ferkser looked really good when he was on the field, not last week. Derrick Henry's a stud. So I'm just curious to kind of see how they rebound and play when they go to Seattle, because Seattle has a strong home field advantage. Both teams pretty decent against the run. Nothing else really jumps out here. So this is one probably going to stay away from. I don't mind doing a money line bet on Tennessee because 5.5, that's going to grow. That's going to get to 6, maybe 6.5. So you're going to get a really juicy dog. And Tennessee as a dog would be phenomenal. I mean, you've got Tannehill, Henry, A.J. Brown, and Julio. And you said they won the game. I don't think anyone would be shocked by that. But again, something I'm going to wait and see. And let's go over here to Dallas Chargers. So this would be my 5th play if I had to do one. I prefer it teased down. 50 to 55 is a monster jump. I mean, that moved up 5 points. So I completely understand and agree with everybody why it's going up. Line opened at 3. Bobby Index has it about pick 'em. Cheat sheet line has it about -4 so pretty much close to the actual line. Our total, we have it about 53.5, so it started below us, it moved towards our cheat line, and now it's exceeded the cheat line to 55, so that worries me a little bit that it's went over. But when we dig down into the game a little bit more, we see both teams had the 3rd and 9th most offensive yards at 451 and 424, and the reason the Chargers are favored here on the cheat line is they only gave up 259 yards last week. Dallas gave up 431. Again, they were playing the Super Bowl champs, so of course that's going to be skewed there. So I think this is more of a pick'em game. I would probably take Dallas plus the 3. I love teasing that up to 9. If Dallas can hang within a couple points of Tampa Bay, I definitely think they're going to be able to hang within a couple points of the Chargers. But I do like leaning the over here just because both teams are going to move the ball a lot. And so right here, this is the key table for me. So look at their run, 23 and 37%. They're passing 77 and 63%. Passing equals points because if there's an incomplete pass, it stops the clock. And if there's a completed pass, that's usually a chunk of yards moving the ball down the field. So two teams that pass a lot and coming off big yardage games, that could be a shootout score. Game good to stack in DFS, which it's got a total of 55, so it's going to be a chalky stack, so find a way to get contrarian. But anyways, so Dallas, Zeke could come back and do better here. The Chargers gave up 4.7 yards per carry. Dallas only gave up 3.7, but Tampa doesn't really run, so with one game, this is kind of a wait and see. So that's kind of where I'm sitting on this game. The last two we're going to hit real quick. Kansas City, Baltimore. I live in Kansas City. I'm going Kansas City. This is a Sunday night game, so I'm not putting it in as a play, but it is a game that I will probably take Kansas City. 2.5, 3.5. I was kind of shocked the line was that low after the Raiders came back and nipped Baltimore in the butt. Bobby Index has Kansas City -1. Cheat sheet also matches -1. Total of about 52. And we're kind of in that range. Baltimore's had so many injuries. It's brutal for them. I mean, they're down to Tyson Williams and Latavius Murray, and their receivers, Marquise Brown, Sammy Watkins, Mark Andrews. Lamar Jackson's a stud, though, so you can never really count him out. Kansas City's defense didn't look good. I mean, we finished last week at 31st overall, 32nd in rushing. Gave up 5.9 yards per carry. So what worries me here is that Williams and Murray and Lamar Jackson are going to have a heyday running the ball on us. But if we can get a 7+ point lead and make them throw the ball, then that's where we would have an advantage. So I would lead in Kansas City here. I don't mind going the over. If you wanted to go Baltimore, I think you're perfectly fine there. It's going to be a fun game to watch. So after my Sunday of DFS and season long and sports betting and everything's wrapped up, I'm going to sit back and watch the Chiefs-Baltimore game, so that's going to be a good start going into Monday. The one thing that did jump out here is Pass Pro. So Baltimore was 27th at protecting the QB, and then Kansas City was 10th at applying pressure. So that's something that I want to see. Showdown slate we'll go over on the DFS video. And then finally, I believe this is the Monday night game, which it should be, is Detroit and Green Bay. And what do you do with this one? Green Bay looked awful last week, and they come out as a double-digit favorite. So Bobby Index has Packers -3.5. Cheat sheet line actually has Detroit -3.5. So we've got a skewed number here. Looking at it offensively, Detroit somehow, after I stopped watching, managed to put up 430 offensive yards. I was blown away, to say the least. Green Bay managed 229 yards against New Orleans. And then Detroit, they also gave up 442. So if you told me Rodgers and the Packers put up 450, I wouldn't be shocked. Detroit has no defense, and if Rodgers wants to, he doesn't look like he even wants to be in Green Bay right now. They could come out and wreck this game, but I'm sure as hell not laying 11 points on it. I'm from the show me state, so you got to show me something first. Packers gave up 322 yards. So This one will be interesting. I don't mind it over here. I would probably lean the points, but I do not want to make any wagers on Detroit by any means. I'm not a fan of Goff, Swift, and I mean, look at the receivers. Tyrell Williams, Aroma, St. Brown, Khalif Raymond, Cephas. Hawkinson's a stud, though. If you're playing a showdown, I like putting him in a captain spot with both QBs. Yeah, but other than that, I mean, look at all these greens. So Green Bay was the worst ranked offense. Detroit was 25th. Both teams over 4.4 yards per carry. Nothing exciting here. I mean, Green Bay should run away with this game, but oh my gosh, after that first week, who knows? Both teams threw 71% of the time, so if Detroit does score, I think the game will go over. And there's a chance they may stay within that. I think that line's way too high, though, but I'm not confident enough to back Detroit. So I think that is it for the list of games. So just to recap, I've got Saints minus 3.5, Buffalo minus 3.5, Rams minus 4 ball, and then San Francisco, Philadelphia over 50, and then I would lean Dallas Chargers over 55. And then we discussed some of the other games that you can tease and mix and match and whatnot. So I did post an article on the website. I am doing a free roll. If you're playing DFS on DraftKings, giving away 3-month memberships to the top 3 finishers. The contest is probably filled by the time you hear this because I opened it for 40 people and it was growing really quick. Except for the guy who was bitching about the dollar, I booted him just because that's ridiculous. So anyways, we'll talk later, guys. You can find us at CheatSheetPros.com, and our Facebook group will be in the description. Thank you.